haunted dolls, cursed rings, deadly chests, and an ancient frozen corpse said to bring death to those who discovered him. These are more mysterious museums that contain items too dangerous to display. Out of Covington, Kentucky, there's a traveling collection of haunted and cursed objects run by Greg Newkirk and Dana Matthews. They call it the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and the Occult. Instead of keeping everything locked behind glass in one building, they take the collection on the road for people to see. Greg and Dana have been investigating strange cases for about 20 years. They run the site Planet Weird and have spent years collecting objects tied to reported paranormal activity. Some came from their own investigations, others were handed over by people who just didn't want these items in their homes anymore. Rather than store all of them away, they decided to show them off. A few items get most of the attention. There's the Idol of Nightmares, nicknamed Billy, which was found hidden under a house. The family who had it for a while experienced all kinds of weird stuff, mostly violent nightmares and physical disturbances. There's also a black scrying mirror where people report disturbing visions and weird physical sensations after looking into it. But the Crone of the Catskills is easily one of the scariest pieces in the museum, for good reason. It's a hand-carved wooden statue, its eyes pierced with nails and a noose carved around its neck. It was found in a cave in the Catskill Mountains. The hikers who found it brought it home. They started to experience some unsettling things. They'd hear strange knocks, they'd see shadow figures creeping around their home, and then there was this constant stench of stagnant water. But when they finally saw a full-blown apparition of a ghostly crone, they said enough was enough and got rid of the thing. Of course, it ended up with Greg and Dana, who say nobody is allowed near it. This is the only item in their collection that stays locked away. The Conjured chest, sometimes called the Death Chest, is a wooden chest from the 1800s. It's now kept at the Kentucky History Museum in Frankfurt. The story behind it goes back to the 1830s, when it was made in Kentucky by an enslaved man named Remus for his owner, Jeremiah Graham. The story goes, Remus was forced to build the chest. Of course, he was never paid or acknowledged for it. Supposedly, he placed a curse on it, meant to follow anyone who took ownership of it. The first death tied to the chest is said to have happened inside the Graham house. Graham's son was placed in it. He was later found dead. As the chest was passed to other owners, stories of death and misfortune followed. People claimed family members fell ill suddenly, died in accidents, or were killed under strange circumstances. Some say the chest was responsible for at least 16 deaths over the years. Next up is the cursed Stele, an ancient stone monument that was originally one piece, but it's been split in half for well over 100 years. One half was recorded in Syria in 1879 and eventually ended up in the British Museum, where it still sits today. The other half showed up in London decades later and was auctioned off. In 2014, the British Museum had the option to buy that second half, but they didn't. Part of their hesitation was that no one could clearly explain how the lower half left Syria. Was there looting involved? On top of that, the inscription carved into it basically says, anyone who moves the image of the god Salmanu, hides it, or pushes it somewhere forbidden will be punished. Salmanu will strip away their power, erase their name and family, and leave them living in disgrace. Bringing it to a museum far from its home already counts as breaking the rule, and putting the two halves together in London, well, they think it might have doubled the risk. So between the legal questions and the curse, the museum just decided it wasn't worth it. Vigango statues come from the Mijikenda people along the coast of Kenya. They were never meant to leave. Each one is carved after the death of a respected male elder and is believed to carry that person's spirit. Families use them to stay connected to their ancestors. In the 80s, more than 300 of these statues were stolen though. Thieves took them straight from sacred land and sold them to tourists and art dealers. From there, the statues ended up in galleries, private collections, and museums across the US and Europe. A bunch were sold by American art dealer Ernie Wolf III, who said he believed the statues were legally acquired and no longer spiritually active, which of course wasn't true. After the thefts, elders blamed the missing statues for illness, failing crops, and dying animals. Even outside Kenya, museum staff and collectors started reporting their own issues: accidents, financial problems, disturbing dreams, a constant feeling of dread. Some said they heard voices actually telling them to send the statues back. So some museums did start returning them, but there's still a lot of them scattered around the world. The Ring of Silvianus is an old Roman gold ring from around the 300 CE. It was found in a farm field near Silchester, England, somewhere before the late 1700s. It eventually ended up at a country house called the Vine, where it's kept today. The ring is big, heavy, bigger than most rings, and has a name carved into it. That name is Senescenius. Not far away, at a completely different Roman site in Lydney, archaeologists found something else, a thin sheet of lead with a curse etched into it. The curse was written by a man named Silvanus, who said his ring had been stolen. He asked the god Nodens to punish the thief until the ring was returned, naming Senescenius directly, asking that he be made sick until he gave the ring back. So you have a ring with Senescenius' name on it, and a curse calling for him to suffer because of a stolen ring. And no one can prove beyond doubt that this exact ring is the one mentioned in the curse, but it certainly seems like it. Alright, so the Myrtles Plantation in Louisiana isn't technically a museum. It's a historic site, but it does contain antiques and artifacts that the public can visit, and one of the creepiest items here is known as the Cursed Mirror. The plantation was built in 1796 and has a long reputation for strange activity, but the mirror is where a lot of the stories seem to concentrate. The legend goes back to the 1800s, when the home was owned by Clark and Sarah Woodruff. The story goes that a woman named Chloe, who was enslaved at the plantation, poisoned the family. Sarah and 2 of her children died. After their deaths, the mirror in the house was said to be left uncovered during the mourning period. At the time, covering mirrors was meant to prevent spirits from being trapped in them, so because that step was skipped, the spirits are said to be locked inside the glass. And ever since, people have claimed to see the figures of a woman and children appearing in it. A specific handprint also repeatedly shows up on it, even after the mirror has been thoroughly cleaned. The South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology in Italy houses one of the most cursed items in the world. High up in the Occult Alps in northern Italy, more than 5,000 years ago, a man was shot in the back with an arrow and left to die in the ice. Today we know him as Ötzi the Iceman, one of the oldest, most well-preserved mummies ever found. Scientists have been fascinated with him ever since his discovery in 1991. And fans of the paranormal have been too, because some say Ötzi is cursed. Rainer Henn, head of the forensic team who handled Ötzi when he was first pulled from the ice, died in a car crash in 1992 while on his way to give a lecture about the find. Then there's Kurt Fritz, the mountaineer who led Henn to the body. He died in an avalanche. Not long after, the journalist who filmed the excavation, Rainer Holzel, died of a brain tumor at just 47. One of the eeriest cases was Helmut Simon, one of the tourists who originally found Ötzi. He died in 2004, frozen in the Alps almost in the same spot as the discovery. And just within an hour of his funeral, Dieter Warneck, the head of the rescue team, died of a heart attack. Even Konrad Spindler, the archaeologist who scoffed at the curse, passed away from complications related to multiple sclerosis. And Dr. Tom Loy, who carried out Ötzi's DNA analysis, died at 63 before finishing a book he was writing. So yeah, I mean, I'm not one to really believe in curses, but I don't want to go anywhere near that guy. Well, who would have thunk there'd be haunted artifacts at a place called the Medieval Torment Museum? You know what the word actually is. YouTube. Anyway, this creepy museum in Chicago has all the dark stuff you'd expect to see. Torment racks, chains, spikes, all devices designed to seriously hurt people. But for a lot of visitors, the creepiest thing isn't the iron and wood, it's the feeling that something else is watching them. Over time, a few of the museum's pieces have built up reputations, with stories of hauntings and strange goings-on. Take the iron chair, for example. People say that just standing near it gives them chills. Some say they can almost hear screams. The executioner's mask, once worn by the people who carried out death sentences. Some visitors claim it feels like the person who wore it is still there, lurking in the room. Not to mention all the ghostly shadows people see lurking around the place. If you've ever been freaked out by dolls, this next story isn't going to make it any easier. Meet Mandy, the haunted doll at the Quesnel Museum in British Columbia, who has her own locked cabinet and a sign warning visitors not to use flash photography. Mandy arrived at the museum in 1991 after her previous owner found her sitting in a box of her grandmother's things. She was supposed to be a gift for a newborn, but the woman couldn't handle it. The doll had been locked in the chest for who knows how long, and the woman reportedly heard crying coming from the chest before deciding Mandy was just too creepy to keep around. Once she came to the museum, the weird activity didn't stop. Staff and visitors have reported all kinds of strange things. One night, a staff member left Mandy in the lab overnight to photograph her, and when they came back, the room looked like a toddler had thrown a tantrum. Another time, a reporter working in the museum basement heard footsteps above him, while his equipment suddenly went haywire. Visitors trying to film or photograph Mandy often have their cameras glitch out. Even small, harmless toys around Mandy don't stay put. Once a stuffed lamb that was given to her to keep her company was found outside her locked cabinet the next morning. Brighton's Preston Manor is already known as one of England's spookiest historic houses, but in 2015 they received a shop ledger dating back to 1915. The book was donated by Josephine Benyovitz, who, along with her father Tony, had been haunted by the ledger ever since he discovered it in 1988. Tony found it bricked up in the wall of a closed jewelry shop during a demolition, but what seemed like a simple old account book quickly became anything but ordinary. Josephine said that after bringing the ledger home, she started seeing ghostly images in her rug. One spirit reportedly told her that the book needed to be returned to Brighton, to Preston Manor, exactly 100 years after it was first written in December of 1915. Terrified, the family delivered it immediately. A medium who examined the book later said it emanated bad things, and since then it's joined Preston Manor's long line of ghosts, like the Lady in White and the Grey Lady, who are said to glide down the stairs or vanish into walls. Well, that's been the video for today, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next one.